The room went silent in an instant. Cameras stopped flashing, reporters froze mid-sentence, and all eyes turned toward the commotion at the back of the hall. It was supposed to be a calm press event on climate legislation, but instead, it became one of the most shocking confrontations Washington had ever seen. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stood on stage, her expression sharp, her tone unyielding. "Security," she said firmly, pointing toward the crowd, "please remove Miss Tulsi Gabbard from this event." A ripple of disbelief moved through the audience. Tulsi, standing near the aisle, didn't flinch. Her face was calm, her posture strong. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. The two women, once allies of sorts, both voices for reform and accountability, were now standing on opposite ends of an invisible political battlefield. Tulsi raised her hand, signaling the security guards to stop. "You don't need to do that," she said softly, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "I came here to listen, not to fight." But Ac's eyes burned with frustration. "You came here to undermine the message," she shot back. "You've spent years criticizing people who are actually trying to change the system." A low murmur spread across the audience. Cameras turned on again. Everyone knew they were witnessing something historic. Two women who had once symbolized courage and change now clashing in public over what those very words meant. Tulsi didn't respond right away. She took a deep breath, then slowly walked toward the stage. Security hesitated as something about the calmness in her demeanor made them pause. She stepped up to the microphone, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. "You and I may see things differently, Alexandria," Tulsi began. "But don't confuse disagreement with sabotage. I fought for this country so people could speak freely, not so we could silence each other when it's inconvenient." The hall fell silent again. Even Ak didn't move. Tulsi continued, "I came here today because I believe in what you're trying to do. I believe in helping our planet, in protecting people from greed and corruption. But if we can't even listen to someone who has a different path to the same goal, then what are we really fighting for?" The audience began to shift. Some clapped softly, others nodded in quiet agreement. Ak's face softened for a moment, though her pride still held strong. She had worked tirelessly to push legislation forward, facing constant backlash and political attacks. She wasn't used to being challenged, especially by someone she once respected deeply. Tulsi took a step closer. "When I left Congress, I did it because I was tired of the games, the finger-pointing, the tribalism. I wanted to serve people, not parties. You're still in there, still fighting, but don't let them turn you into what we both promised we'd never become." There it was, the line that broke through the wall. The words hung in the air, raw and unguarded. Ak blinked, visibly taken aback. The crowd could feel the emotional weight between them, a mix of pain, pride, and truth. Ak finally spoke, her voice lower now. "You think I've become part of the system?" Tulsi shook her head. I think the system is trying to become you." The entire hall gasped. Even the security guards looked unsure of what to do next. Ak lowered her microphone slightly, processing the words. For the first time that evening, she didn't look like the fierce congresswoman everyone saw on television. She looked human, conflicted, reflective. After a long pause, she turned to the audience. "Maybe we've both forgotten what this is really about," she admitted quietly. "It's not about who's louder, it's about who listens." Tulsi nodded, offering a faint smile. "Then let's start listening again." Without another word, Ak motioned for the guards to stand down. The tension dissolved as applause erupted across the hall, slow at first, then louder, echoing through every corner of the building. People stood up, cheering not for one woman or the other, but for the rare moment of humility and humanity in politics. After the event, the two met backstage. The cameras were gone. It was just them and two strong women who had both carried the weight of expectation, criticism, and hope on their shoulders. "I shouldn't have asked security to remove you," Ak said, her voice genuine. "I was a broken bar angry." Tulsi smiled gently. "I get it. You're fighting battles every day. Sometimes the enemy looks like someone who's actually just trying to remind you of who you are." They shook hands, a simple gesture, but one that meant everything. The headlines the next day were explosive. AOC and Tulsi clash turns into moment of unity. But what the cameras didn't capture was the quiet conversation that followed, the part where both women agreed to work together on a bipartisan initiative to protect veterans and environmental communities. It wasn't about winning anymore, it was about healing. Because in that heated moment when pride met purpose, and confrontation turned into compassion, two leaders rediscovered what true leadership really means: standing firm in your beliefs, but humble enough to listen when the truth comes from the other side. And that day, in a crowded Washington hall, something rare happened. Not a political victory, not a viral moment, but something far more powerful: understanding.